Good afternoon and welcome back to the farm. I got a late start this morning and didn't get any work done this morning before work. So I'm gonna squeeze in as much as I can today, but I wanted to show you something that I woke up to this morning. From my bedroom window, this just looks like snowfall. It's just so pretty. And it looks like the bees are enjoying it too. So that's a good sign. But I'm not sure what they are. I'll try and do some research, but if you know what they might be, pop into the comments and let me know. It just makes me so glad that I didn't jump right into mowing already. My neighbors have, for the most part, all mowed twice already, but I don't want to touch it until at least after the dandelions pass and the lilacs are in bloom, because to me that's a good sign that there are enough other things blooming that the pollinators have enough resources to get going for the spring. But I have a mulch pile waiting for me, so let's shovel some more mulch. About 15 minutes a load, and I got 3 loads on the garden today, so, well, now, and I'll do another batch this afternoon, but my endurance is about an hour of heavy work. It'll get better. I haven't been doing anything all winter, and then of course the year before was chaos, but I will get my endurance back. But I do have one other job I want to do before my lunch break is over. I am going to fill this wagon half full with the mulch and half full of the compost, and let's go mulch the grapevines. All right, can you see the grapevines? Because I sure can't. And that's another reason why we're doing this. So, there's one little stick. And over here is another little stick. This little stick's got buds on it, so that's good. So part of the reason I want to mulch these is just to be able to locate them. It'll get easier once I have the trellis up, obviously. And I'll know not to go under the trellis, but that's a couple of weeks away at least, because I gotta get that garden in shape. But so mulching them is going to protect them in a couple of ways. It's going to suppress the grass that's growing around it. which the worms will then turn into food and worm casting. So that's all good for them. The compost is going to add nourishment. The wood chips are going to retain moisture so they don't have to be watered. And overall, it will just make them more visible in the landscape. So I've got a couple of pieces of cardboard. They're not huge, but unlike the ones that I put in the orchard, these ones I slit, and you can see that triangle that I cut. That's just to make room for the stem of the grapevine. So it'll fit right in that little notch, and then the mulch will go all around it and protect the plant. So let's get these covered up. Quick and easy, and it really didn't even take all that much material. I had about half a wagon full of each, and I didn't use even all of that. So just that little bit is going to help these out so much. Now I've got all this left. I think I'm going to put them on this peony that came with the property. I'm very excited. I love peonies. This one has some of the same weed problems that we have on the rest of the property. I have ground elder. You can kind of see it coming up in the garden here, those spiky leaves there. It's a rhizome spreading weed, and I think there are some medicinal uses for it, but a plant growing somewhere that you don't want it is a weed. And the flower beds in the front of the house are completely choked with it. So this isn't gonna necessarily help suppress it. The only way to really get rid of it is to dig out the rhizomes. And I'm not doing that right now. But since this is filling in now and getting its stems and will eventually get its blooms, I figure why don't we give it a little bit of a boost so we get some better flowers out of it this year. it's not perfect, but it's better. Again, I don't have the time that I'd like to commit to flowers. I'm sure you all think that I don't care about flowers, but I love flowers, and that's what the boxes over in the front yard are supposed to be, all flower beds. But the vegetables are on a much tighter timeline. Next year will be much better for the flowers, but I'll have all summer to be digging out the ground ivy, and you could see all the little purple flowers in here. That was purple dead nettle, which again is a very useful medicinal edible plant. It's just not growing where I want it, but I don't think dead nettle ever does grow where you want it. But so this is good enough for this year. Next year I'll come through before the sprouts start coming up. I'll put more cardboard. I'll put cardboard down. I'll put more compost down and mulch it again once the stems start coming up, and they'll do much better next year. I think in this embankment I can kind of see there's one right there, and there's another one down there, and maybe there's one down at the far end. So if those give me blossoms this year, that'll be great. This bed is definitely a next year project though, because I want that to be blooming as many seasons as I can manage. Right now it's got the peonies, it's got a couple of daffodils, which probably need to be dug up and separated just to give them room to bloom, and tons and tons and tons of daylilies, which again, love daylilies, but I don't necessarily want this whole garden to be nothing but. I'd love to dig some of them out and put them along the embankment by the road down there to add some color and life to the lower pasture. But that's it for my lunch break, so I will check back in with you this afternoon to get the last of those paths done. And that's it. That's half done. Well, maybe a third done. Although the middle part, once I get the digging done, it's just going to be dump and dump and dump and dump. So that shouldn't be, I don't know, as bad. Yes, these are the stories we tell ourselves when a job we're doing kind of sucks. But you can't argue that it looks great. I am so pleased with how that's coming out. Whew. I want to show you something I noticed. Oh, God, it's beautiful out. We've got this beautiful tree here. I'm so happy to see it leafing out. It just goes up and up and endlessly up. And I don't know what it is. It's got these tiny little pink flowers and all these little nodules coming off of it. So if you know what this is, drop me a message and let me know. But that's not what I want to show you. Maybe you remember when I did my initial property tour, I was talking about all the big old dead trees on the property and how sad I was to see them dead, but that I wasn't going to do anything to remove them just because I loved how magnificent even their skeletons looked. Well, guess what? Look at that. They're all leafing out. You wouldn't know it looking at the bottom. But going up to the top, just like with the apple trees down below, it's like it hasn't gotten the message. So the circulatory system is still working magnificently. And even the big trees over there that I thought were dead snags for the bald eagles, they're all leafing out. So nothing is really dead. Look, the apple trees, it looks like they're getting a flush of pink, so they're going to have blooms on them soon. I don't think I'll get apples. I don't recall seeing any apples down there when I moved in, but who knows? This one is definitely dead. The green on that is all briars, but that's okay. Like I said, I just love the shape of it so much, I'm just going to leave it be. Even the dead apple trees up by the creek are at least getting leaves on them. So there's not as much dead here as I thought initially. And of course, that's why permaculture teaches that we take a year to just observe the property that we're on and see what it does. Where does the wind blow? Where does the water flow? What is living? What's growing? What appears in your landscape at different times of the year? Like, I didn't know anything about the flush of white flowers in the front lawn, and they're just so beautiful. They look like tiny little flocks, and maybe that's what they are. Maybe they're wild flocks, but every season is going to bring with it new surprises and new things growing, and that's the wonderful thing about being in the wild. So we make small, slow changes. So, you know, what I'm doing up in the garden may seem pretty dramatic, but it's not changing any of the established landscape. It's changing the garden space, but that had already been taken over previously, and so I'm just reshaping what the previous owners had done. All of the wild spaces I'm trying to leave as much as I can. I mean, I have big dreams about digging a couple of ponds to help manage water and things like that, but I'm not going to do those right away, and I may not do those at all, depending on what impact it might have on the landscape. Like if I put a pond in the lower property, yes, that might collect water, but it might also encourage the creek to flow into my lower property instead of staying in its banks. So I'm not eager to do that anytime soon. Again, I'm just going to watch and see, and you know, it only happened once, 1.5 times all winter. It didn't happen at all in the spring. And I don't expect that it'll happen over the summer, depending on rainfalls. Now, last year, they had a lot of rain up here. Like every weekend I was coming up to look at properties, it was raining. But the year before, they had drought conditions. So there's just no telling what it's going to do. And that's why we watch. I think that's it for today. I'm so glad to at least have that part done. I don't feel as much pressure to get the other side done, except I'd like to get the compost pile out of there, just because it's starting to steam, which if I was composting it would be great, but if it gets too hot, wood chip piles have been known to spontaneously combust, and I've had enough fire in the last year to really not want that to happen. And I don't know if you saw in that one section of the video, it was steaming pretty good, but I think I'll definitely have enough wood chips to do the whole thing. But I'm done with wood chips at least for a couple of days. Tomorrow, if we have the weather for it, I want to get the asparagus beds leveled out and composted, and the compost is a lot easier to move than the wood chips were. And if I can get the lettuce beds leveled out and composted, that would be great, because that's all stuff that should have been in weeks ago. But especially because it's in a shady spot, I think I'll have a longer growing season with it. And then the pea beds are also on this side, and they, again, should have been planted weeks ago. I may not get a decent pea crop, but I'll give it a shot, and if not, I'll try again in the fall and see what we can do. If I plant them in July, hopefully we can get a September crop, but well, who knows, we'll see. So that's tomorrow, and tomorrow I've got to check the bees and see if they need more food. So I have seen them out and about in amongst the dandelions and whatever the white flowers are, so they're at least exploring their environment. Hopefully they're finding stuff that they like. On that note, I gotta go grocery shopping, so I will see you folks tomorrow.